We're staying with the big summer rally theme. This is historic stuff. Let's bring in our great friend Michael Kudlow, the Permanent Portfolio Family of Funds. He manages the 5-star rated Permanent Portfolio Fund. The rest of our panel is still there and with us. Mike Kudlow, I was reading your notes. You're not all that bullish, are you?
Well, in the long term, I am, Larry. Absolutely. I think there's a lot of things in place for a sustained bull market. Especially encouraging has been Q2 earnings so far, which I think have been maybe better than a lot of people expected for the most part. I think in the short term, though, my skepticism is more that, you know, from early March to now, we've moved in a tremendous upside, and I'm not quite sure we won't have a pullback and maybe consolidate a little bit.
What's wrong with a pullback? What's wrong? Not one person in a million can predict a pullback. I mean, look at today. Given the lousy numbers from Microsoft and Amazon last night, everybody was biting their fingernails. International markets opened up, shrugged it off. Our markets basically shrugged it off. The NASDAQ lost a smidge. The Dow was up, what did we lit today? 24 points. The S&P was up 3 in a week where the indexes were up 4.5%. In other words, pullbacks come and go, Mike. Why even worry about it?
Well, they do. I mean, we're long-term investors, so we don't really worry about them. I think for an investor with a strong stomach and a long-term time horizon, there's a lot of opportunity in the stock market. I think for a shorter-term investor that's missed the last few months, though, you know, a pullback might be a better entry point when things, because I think it will happen at some point before the year's out.
What do you like here? Give us some advice. Say I got
a lot of things. I like financial services.
Hang on. Let's take Steve Moore, who's now an investor sitting on the fence in cash as of this morning. What would you advise him to do with his portfolio?
The first question I'd ask him is he a longer or a short-term investor? If he's longer-term, I would say there's a lot of opportunity.
All right, Steve Moore, you're nodding your head. Are you a long-term investor?
I'm a long-term.
All right, so now that gives your parameters, Mr. Kudlow. Give Steve Moore some advice. He needs to get rich again.
Fair enough, Steve. I still think the global growth story is there. I like energy. I like commodities across the board. I like U.S. industrials. I like financial services companies, more weighted towards the asset servicers and brokerage and investment banking versus the traditional, you know, B of A, Citicorp types. I like biotech and pharmaceutical, especially more so since healthcare seems to be bogged down, and you know, chemicals and other ancillary things that go into the manufacturing
I need a
process.
response. Steve Moore, let's put the healthcare debate aside just for a minute. Mr. Kudlow wants you to buy energy commodities. By the way, energy's back up to almost $70. Dr. Copper has had a terrific run. There's your global recovery. Energy, commodities, industrials, financials, Steve Moore. Would you follow his advice?
Yeah, well, look, I think we're in a kind of 70s slow growth, gradual high inflation. Commodities are going to rise in this kind of environment. I'm a big believer we're in a sideways market for a long time because of these crummy public policies we put in place that are detriments to growth.
Joe Battipaglia, what advice would you give Steve Moore to improve his portfolio that he sold today?
Well, we're 40% invested in equities. We are taking risk, but it's very narrowly defined. I'm actually concerned over the next several years because from this point going into the future, I see rising tax rates, not falling tax rates. Rising interest rates, not falling interest rates. Rising regulatory environment, not falling. All within the framework of an indebted society
that's
got twice as much debt as it had before. So you have a different world environment for the next several years as we look to deleverage, and that's where the risks come in.
Joe has the right story here.
You're encouraging him, Joe. You're encouraging him. All right.
I'm just trying to get a little balance.
Thank you, Michael Kudlow. We appreciate it very much. We're going to come back and work on Steve Moore's portfolio some more. I want Jerry Bowyer to get in and tell us why, if businesses are recovering, that is good for consumers, and why consumer saving is not such a bad thing. Now, let's check in with my great pal Dennis Neal to see what he's working on for the top of the hour. Hello, Dennis.
Hey, Larry. We're going to look at how it's shaped up for next week, sell-off or not. But also, I want to look at Obama dropping below 51% approval rating for the first time. And then is attention deficit disorder, emphasis on the deficit, starting to be a problem in this presidency?
All right.
Back to you.
All right, good stuff, Dennis Steele. Have a great program tonight. We're going to come right back. I want to know why consumer saving is a good thing, not a bad thing, and how it contributes to economic growth. By the way, retail stocks have been on fire. Let's visit that, too. This is the Kudlow Report. We'll be right back.